Today on Locked On Red Wings, what are you doing? You pretending you're bald? Thank you, Scotty. I appreciate it. Today on Locked On Red Wings, which assets that the Red Wings hold are untouchable?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You know, I can see you mouthing stuff while that's playing, because this is how it works, guys. We use Restream to record, and I, as the host, we're on the wrong sides. Is that what you're talking about? Look at that.
Yes.
Now we're set.
Thought I was pretending to be bald just for no reason.
Yeah, I thought you were just mocking me.
No, I was. My name was Brian Fisher. I had to act the part.
All right. Well, if your name is Brian Fisher, do you want to introduce the show?
Welcome to another edition. This is how I introduce Tigers. Welcome to another edition of Locked On Red Wings.
You introduce it with Locked On Red
Scott
Wings?
Bentley. I'm a freelance journalist for the Detroit News and the host of Locked On Tigers. This is Brian Fisher, a podcast producer for the WWJ. And today we are discussing, this is actually a really cool topic, to be honest with you. And Brian thought of it today, whatever you thought of it, before we recorded, obviously. And it is essentially just discussing who are not who, because picks are going to be involved too, but which assets the Red Wings have do you view as untouchable? And I think that this is a fascinating conversation. Brian, you obviously tweeted out a poll that caused quite a stir earlier this week about like which prospects do you not want to give up in a trade type of thing. But I think expanding it just from like Red Wings players all the way to prospects and draft picks as well is super fascinating. So I'm kind of the belief that everything has a price eventually. But I do think that this is a really fascinating conversation.
Yeah. And so I tweeted out the poll yesterday. I was just at work and I was bored, and I was like, you know what? I want to see where people are at with the top prospects and rising players. And I knew it was going to cause a stir because I'm basically gun to your head making you pick one of your fan favorites or most excited to trade for or trade away and forcing you to make that decision. And I knew it was going to create a stir, but it got 47 comments. It was crazy. But the results were even crazier in the fact that obviously, the scenario again was the Detroit Red Wings are on the verge of making a blockbuster trade. But the team you're asking to make a trade with wants one of your rising young players and prospects back in return. This is a trade that's going to move the needle on the rebuild significantly, but you have to pick one of Moritz Seider, Lucas Raymond, Simon Edvinsson, or Marco Kasper to trade away. Gun to your head, you have to make that decision. But the benefit of it is you're going to bring that window to the playoffs, to contention, so much sooner. And surprisingly, the vote was split. Unsurprisingly, Moritz Seider only got 2% of the vote across 2,000 votes. I mean, I would be really interested to see who those 2,000 were, or who that 2% was. But Lucas Raymond got 33% of the vote. Simon Edvinsson got 35% of the vote, winning the poll. And Marco Kasper gained 30%. So less than 5% difference between all three of those guys, which just made me realize, like, and again, this is a gun to your head. You have to pick one. It just made me think, like, who in the Red Wings organization is untouchable? And we did this conversation last offseason as well. And now there's new players involved in the fold that might change how we view the untouchables. And I guess when talking about untouchables, before we even get to the prospects and rising stars, I think you got to start with the face of your franchise, Dylan Larkin. Is Dylan Larkin, and he has a no trade clause that's has kicked in now, is Dylan Larkin on an untouchable piece of this team's core?
I mean, the answer is whether you like it or not. Yes. Now, like, he's not, again, like he has an NTC, right? Like,
yep.
So, if you don't think he is, tough turkey, doesn't matter. Like,
he's only moving if he agrees to.
Right. He's going to be here. So I have maintained the belief that he is. In our episode last year, I maintained that as well. I don't think the Wings would move away from a point a game player when trying to get better. And they just extended him for 8 years. So
Yeah.
yeah, yes, I don't even think that that's really too much of a conversation. He is absolutely, when you're starting a list of untouchable players, he is either 1 or 2.
I'm glad you said 1 or 2 because I think there's somebody else at number 1 right now, but we'll
I
talk
agree. I
about
think
that.
Larkin is 2. Yeah,
Um,
but he has an NTC and just signed an 8-year deal, so like he's kind of like 1. But
well,
like, yes, I think on pure value's sake, I think he is number 2 as well.
and like you said, everyone at some point has a price. I mean, if someone comes down the line and says, Steve Eisman, I'll give you Connor McDavid for Dylan
Right,
Larkin
yeah,
plus, I
yeah.
mean, like, you're making that trade. But for what this team is trying to accomplish, he is the bedrock of this team. He is now that veteran leadership. It's crazy to think that Dylan Larkin is your veteran, but Dylan Larkin is your veteran leadership on the team. And even if the Red Wings decide to tear it all down and start all over again, I still think that Dylan Larkin is a key piece of this franchise. Now, at a certain point, you know, if you decide that his age is not going to be, he's not going to be in the prime of his career when this team's window is open and you want to try and bring in younger, better pieces, then there's a conversation to be had. But even like,
well, that opens a whole different issue. If that's your take, then you don't think this team's going to be competitive for like 7 years.
Exactly.
Larkin's not that old.
Exactly. So that opens up a different conversation. If down the line this team's still not competitive, then yeah, that changes the conversation.
Right.
But for what this team is trying to accomplish right now with this core, Dylan Larkin is an untouchable player, from his no trade clause to the fact that I think he wants to be here himself.
Yeah, of
to
course.
See this team succeed. I mean, this is,
but also, yeah, like to your point, like just based on where the team is at right now, you are actively trying to do everything in your power to get over the hump and become a playoff team. Why would you get rid of a 26-year-old averaging a point a game?
Yeah, I don't think
like that's
it makes no sense.
Not how you do that. That's
which is why he's easily a choice for untouchable.
Yeah,
like without a doubt.
No, now the person I think value wise actually is number 1 is Moritz Seider.
Without a doubt.
I don't think. I think the list. If I was to create a list of everybody in the National Hockey League that the Red Wings would trade Moritz Seider to acquire, that is a smaller list than anyone else on the roster, I guess would be how I would word it.
I mean, you look at everything that Moritz Seider provides to a team. One, he's like, what, 22 now?
Yeah.
He's still on an ELC. He's immediately became a number 1 defenseman, Calder Trophy winner, Rookie of the Year winner. Defensively, he's great. Offensively, he provides a little bit of spark. He's physical. He's literally everything you want from a well-rounded defenseman at 22, and he only has more room to grow, which is a scary thought.
Yep.
That this isn't even close to his ceiling already as a monster at 22 years old. So he is number 1 on your team, an untouchable, and it showed in that poll. You know, I put Moritz Seider on that poll too because he's in that group of upcoming young players, but he only got 2% of the vote, and he should have only gotten 0% of the vote. Yeah. Like the fact that I chalk that up as misclicks. Like somebody hit the wrong button, because for 2% of your 2,000 people to say Moritz Seider, gun to your head, trade Moritz Seider away is insane to me. Mm-hmm. This guy brings so much value to your freaking roster and to your team.
Yeah, there's an argument he is the most valuable player on your roster at the moment.
To a point that at 21 years old at the time, he was wearing an A in the preseason. And I know that that's like, you're trying to figure out the A's and you want to give it to the young kid. Here you go. Give him a test drive. I mean, this is how much they value Moritz Seider in the locker room already, that even if it's just a preseason game, I don't want to put too much value on it. They're already viewing him as a potential future leader. I mean, not to put too much of an emphasis on it, but you're looking at they're not the same caliber of players. And I want to preface it with this, but it's an Yzerman Lidstrom situation where Yzerman's your captain for so long. He finally retires, and then you have your next captain sitting right there on a platter. It's no doubter. Not trying to compare the type of players they were and the level of players they were. I mean, Moritz Seider screams captain level player, captain level leadership at 22 years old. The type of the fun he brings to the locker room, but he's also so mature for his. It's just he's the complete package on the ice, off the ice, in the locker room. Yeah.
He's going to wear the A for a long, long time. That's
I think as soon as Perron, Sherratt, Kopp, whatever, step away from that leadership role, it's Seider's.
Yeah, I mean, given the status and age of some of those players too, it might even be sooner.
It's just crazy. I love Moritz Seider, so I love him.
There you go. Well, yeah, and then like there you go. Like segment one is just there's two.
Your slam dunks.
the top two done. Like the two closest to like 100% untouchables in the entire organization are easily those two gentlemen.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a few other guys and, well, just unassigned asset as well. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about Gametime. Gametime is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest-growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone so you don't have to dig through an email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are talking about who on the Red Wings roster and depth chart, I guess, is an untouchable asset for the Detroit Red Wings.
Organization. I mean, because I want to throw some prospects in the ring too at some point as well, and obviously draft picks will, if we're doing assets, are part of that as well. So, yeah, just I think it's a really fascinating conversation that you came up with for sure.
I think when it comes to other untouchables, there's a couple more easy guys that we can plug in there, and I mean, I think number 3 on that list. Are we going in order of untouchableness?
I wasn't, but I think what I want to do is just have this open conversation about like whatever we go bounce name, like throw ideas and names out there and see what the other thinks, and then at the end maybe we we don't need a hardcore list, but like maybe try and I don't know. I don't want to get like too specific with it because I think some lists are dumb, but it would be fascinating to discuss the difference between some of the players as well.
Well, and we're trying to rank the level of untouchable of players who we deem are all untouchable in the end. So it's kind of like it's a moot conversation regardless, but it's still gonna be interesting to see where we end up ranking them in terms of untouchableness. But so my next guy I'm going with to talk about here. I mean, Lucas Raymond, right? Talk about guys who are on the NHL roster right now. He's 21 years old now. He can finally legally drink alcohol in the States. Congratulations to him. Big ups to him. He had a bit of a down year, sophomore slump. I think his size finally kind of teams figured out if you body him up, you can knock him off the puck, and he's going to struggle to find more success. I think this offseason he puts on some weight. He learns to be stronger on the puck. He's going to be right back to that kind of levels of production we saw his rookie season, if not more. That third year tends to be breakout years for young upcoming players. I know some players come in the league and they blow up even sooner than that, or they don't have a sophomore slump, but plenty of players do. And I think that Lucas Raymond, in terms of, I mean, you're looking for if you're looking for a player on this team to be your pure goal scorer at the NHL level, Lucas Raymond, I think, has that in him as a ceiling. I mean, you look at other guys around the league, his size shouldn't determine whether or not he can put the puck in the back of the net 30 plus times in a single season. I mean, a guy that people love to bring up, Alex DeBrincat, is only 5'7". Brad Marchand is 5'10". I mean, Lucas Raymond is Johnny Gaudreau is like 5'8". Pure goal scorers don't have to have size. They just have to be strong enough not to get knocked off the puck every single time. And he's a pretty good passer, too. He had plenty of assists this season as well. I mean, I think Lucas Raymond, if he can add size, and I'll even say increase his defensive game, as that seems to be what Derek Lalonde really wants to focus on with this team's scheme. I think Lucas Raymond is an untouchable player as well. After 2 years of going from immediately making the roster, he has nothing but upside to him. And I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, I think Raymond, when you're talking about players on the NHL roster right now, that he is the next closest to Seider and Larkin at the top for sure. He, like you said, a little bit of a down year this year as far as just didn't take the big step forward that a lot of people kind of thought that he would. But yeah, I don't. Again, if we're doing like tiers, I think he's a step below the two we mentioned at the beginning, meaning that the price is not as like astronomical to get rid of him. But in the same breath, I think that it would have to be, again, like they are trying to build up. Like the direction of the Red Wings is building up, trying to get over the hump. I don't think giving up on a 21-year-old that really impressed in his rookie year and has shown signs of being a really solid goal scorer at the NHL level is really something that makes sense. So yeah, I 100% agree that he's one of the untouchables in this organization. It would have to be a haul to get Raymond off of this hockey team.
Oh, without a doubt. I'm just really pumped for Lucas Raymond in general. He's going to be such a good player for this team. I really think that I know there's some hesitancy within the fan base after a subpar second season, but the kid's so young, and he can't fix how tall he is at 5'11". But like I said, his goal scoring ability is not going to be hindered by his height. It's going to be hindered by how much muscle he has. He needs to get stronger for sure. But I mean, he's good off the puck as well. Now, not so much in the defensive zone, but in the offensive zone, he's really good at drawing players away from the puck carrier because they view Raymond as a legitimate threat. So I think that Lucas Raymond, God, you guys got to continue to be excited about this kid. It's crazy to me that I see people down on him after just not even like, I get it was a subpar second-year season after the phenomenal year he put up his rookie year, but he put up more points in his sophomore season than Larkin did in his sophomore season. Like, that's what I keep going back to. 45 points from a 21-year-old sophomore is not a bad season. Like, it's just not. I'm pumped for this kid. I'm really excited. Anyways, I'll stop talking in circles now about Lucas Raymond. Scotty, who do you have next on this Untouchables conversation?
Yeah, I think that there's a pretty solid argument that for the solidified NHLers, that might be it. I don't think that like Edvinsson and Kasper are going anywhere.
I can't believe you.
What?
You left out a major player.
I can't tell if you're joking or not.
Dude, Philip Zadina.
Okay. So, yeah, I think that Edvinsson and Kasper are definitely like players that are probably next in line if you're talking about the untouchable players. I think that the Red Wings think really highly of Marco Kasper, and I think that the plan is for him to be that. I don't even want to say middle six because I think the plan is kind of just like if he can be a second line center, specifically second line, like that would be great. But if they could bring in more talent up the middle, then that would maybe bump him down to third or whatever. So I'll say like the plan for him being a really good, solidified middle six center on a deep playoff contending team, like that's his ceiling. They want him around. And he really impressed this calendar year, obviously. So I think that he's in there. And then Edvinsson, I just don't see them getting rid of the second most hyped defenseman in the entire organization. Like not that they don't have other talent at defense. They have a lot of young talent defensively. I'm sure we'll talk about some of the prospects in there in the third segment. But as far as like ceiling goes, like it's really Seider 1 and Edvinsson 2. And I don't see them getting, even if it is for present, like current talent, I don't see them getting rid of either of those two.
So I think with Edvinsson and then the next guy I'm sure we're going to talk about, I think they're untouchable, not purely because they're top of the depth chart in terms of like Red Wings prospects, but because they're top of the depth chart in team need too.
Right.
Like I know that they're technically unproven talents right now, but these are two areas and little T's. I'm sure you guys can decipher who the next guy is going to be. Oh, big mystery.
Well, I already said his name.
Yeah, you did. But
yes, you need center and defense.
You need center and defense. That's the two biggest needs on this team. I know,
right?
Like center depth, at least positional depth. We know we have a log jam at left wing. We have we could use a little bit more right wings. And I know the biggest need is a scoring winger. I know that in terms of what this team's immediate needs are. But in terms of like building a Stanley Cup contending roster, it's that center depth and that defensive depth that's going to actually win you the cup.
Right.
The goal scorer is great, and that's going to take you that next step. But if you want to make that actual leap to cup contender, you need that depth down the middle and you need that defensive depth. And I mean, originally our fantasy was Edvinsson and Seider playing together, but now that Walman is your bona fide left D-man on that top pair, now you have Simon Edvinsson as your second pair D-man, another guy who has a ceiling of a top pair D-man who can play hopefully 20 minutes a night, who's got that huge size, plays with an edge. Like, it's everything, all the things we love about Moritz Seider, but a little bit different. Simon Edvinsson is definitely more defensively defensive than Moritz Seider is. Seider's less afraid of taking chances in the offensive zone, if that makes sense. Whereas Simon Edvinsson is going to be a little bit more reserved, but that's fine. I mean, you're trying to shore up your defensive side of the puck anyway. So Simon Edvinsson is just as important to this team's future. I mean, we're talking last year. At the end of last season, we had one defenseman on this team. The Red Wings had one defenseman.
Yeah.
Now you have three bona fide defensemen on this team and a couple players that you know are going to be steady in the back end for years to come. Love him or hate him, Ben Sherratt's going to be steady. You know what you're going to get, even if you love or you hate it. Olli Maatta, he's steady.
Extended
like now you have,
reason,
now you have at least, if you want to make the argument that you don't like Ben Sherratt, and Scotty and I have made our opinions on that clear plenty of times, with Olli Maatta, Simon Edvinsson, Moritz Seider, and Jake Walman, I mean, that's right there, solid four. Like, you now have four set defensemen. Then you can have Ben Sherratt if you want on that bottom pair. I mean, I know you, for what you're paying, you probably want him higher, but he's going to do fine on the bottom pair. I think he'll thrive there even. So, I mean, then you have like five. I mean, this defensive core is already shaken up. It could still see a lot of improvements. I think you could improve over Olli Maatta and Ben Sherratt for sure, but that's a hell of a step forward. I'm getting a little off topic here, I know, but Simon Edvinsson is as untouchable as it comes if you're trying to actually build a genuine Stanley Cup contender.
Yeah, for sure. And the weighing of getting rid of defensive depth, and if you throw Kasper in there, center depth for the next whatever, like 5, 6, 7, 10 years, however long you think they're going to be Red Wings, for immediate talent that you're going to have to pay that would score goals. Yes, goal scoring is the number one need, but I'm not sure the good outweighs the bad there still.
Absolutely. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the other guy that Scotty mentioned, Marco Kasper. So stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, you already mentioned him. Why don't you just kind of carry us through the Marco Kasper argument as to why he's untouchable, besides the obvious that you drafted him 8th overall?
Right. I mean, I already kind of said my piece, a lot of it before there with Edvinsson. Like, as you mentioned, it's a huge need for starters, but if he turns into the solid second line center, or you bring in another good center so he bumps down to third, whatever, if he has the talent of a second line center as his ceiling, and you genuinely believe that's going to happen, I don't think they're really in the business of getting rid of young forwards, specifically centers, with high ceilings. So I don't even know if I have too much more to add than what I've already said. Like, that's just, I don't think that they're really in the business of that either. That would take, again, like a huge haul in return to change.
Well, so then let's mention this then. Positional value. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
Positional value is an absolute real thing. And what Marco Kasper plays as center is the position in hockey that has the most responsibility. I mean, you are tasked with not just driving the play, but supporting every other facet of the game. In the defensive zone, you're tasked with supporting the defense. In the offensive zone, you're tasked with not just driving the offense, but supporting your wingers. Positional value-wise, Marco Kasper, I mean, that guy's untouchable because of the fact that you don't have many guys in your depth. Again, you took him 8th overall, and he has the ceiling to be like, maybe not a first-line guy, but like a 1B. You have Dylan Larkin as your 1A. Dylan Larkin's not like, I hate to say, he's not a true elite first-line center, but he's a really, really good first-line center. And Marco Kasper can serve as that 2 or 1B to Larkin's 1A. Yeah. That way you have two pretty good top lines. I mean, Marco Kasper can, and plus the type of game he brings is much needed. He brings the type of game you signed Andrew Kopp to bring. And obviously, I think Marco Kasper has a little bit of a higher scoring upside than Andrew Kopp, but he brings that defensive reliability even more so, at least from what we are hearing, is he thrives on playing a true blood two-way hockey game, two-way center game. He's going to be just as reliable defensively as he is offensively. As much as I love Dylan Larkin, and he is prone to making big defensive plays. I mean, we all go back to that LA Kings game where he saved the game and then he tied it off of that play.
Crazy.
That's not his like primary focus. And I'm not criticizing him here on that. I mean, Dylan Larkin's role as the captain, I mean, it is to do a little bit of everything, but I mean, he is a play driver. Marco Kasper is going to play sound defensively and set up his teammates offensively. He's supposed to be a better version of Andrew Kopp, and that is a great guy you need on a Stanley Cup contending roster. So he's untouchable too. I don't think there's any question. Scotty, I mean, that's the obvious guys, right? Right there, you've listed, you have Larkin, Seider, Raymond, Kasper, and Edvinsson as your obvious guys. And now you start to get in the territory of like, is this guy truly untouchable, or is this draft pick truly untouchable? And I mean, where else do you go from here?
I think there's an argument that's the end of the list, to be honest with you. I mean, looking at the NHL roster, I definitely think that's it. I don't think there's anyone else on the NHL roster that if you were presented with, hey, you can bring in talent now to give up this young player, to give up whatever it is, Berggren. I mean, you mentioned Zadina earlier. I'm not sure how much value he has. But like, I don't think there's anyone else really on the NHL roster that falls under that umbrella. I think all of those guys, again, if presented with the ability to get better now, most people would take. So then you get into draft pick conversation. I mean, you can immediately eliminate anything that's not a first round pick, because those are always expendable all the time. So that's not even a conversation. So then you're really just talking about, and then like future picks. Who says that like the 2020 whatever, like a 2026 first is untouchable? Obviously not, and we're only going to get better. So really, the only conversation on the draft pick side of things is 9 and or 18 untouchable to you? I don't think anyone would really just go to bat and say there's no world in which we can trade 18. So it's really just, is number 9 overall this year untouchable to you? I think that's really the only conversation when it comes to the pick side of things. For me, it's not. Not that I'm like pounding my fist on the table. We need to trade it. And I would obviously much rather get rid of 18 in a trade like that if you could still get the same value and still, it's still a first round pick and whatnot. But if we can get a lot better by getting rid of 9, I'm not gonna, even in a deep draft, I'm not gonna freak out and say that it's a must keep and we have to draft at 9 if the ability to not draft at 9 makes us better.
I mean, we talked about it yesterday, right? I mean, we were willing to give up 9 for Kyle Connor. So,
yeah,
I mean, this is a situation where this is hopefully the last time you're drafting in the top 10. And it's hard. Like when you think about the talent that is in the top 10 this year and how ridiculously deep this first round is, especially, it makes it a tough pill to swallow. But if you're looking to get better sooner rather than later, then I'm more, and the best way to do that is via trade, which I think it is. I'm more than happy with trading 9 away to get a guy who could be a genuine game changer. I really do think that. So then my next question is, I mean, there's a couple other players that I have on my mind that maybe are borderline untouchable, and I kind of just want to hear your opinion on it. So, and I actually kind of already mentioned him earlier in part of my defensive spiral, talking about how much better the defensive side of the puck has gotten, but how much better it still has left to get.
Wow, you think Oli Mata's untouchable, eh?
I think Oli Mata's untouchable. No, I'm just kidding. No, of course not. Jake Walman, he's 27 years old now, so he's a little bit he's older than your captain, Dylan Larkin. But if you look at what he provided to this team this season, he led the team in expected goals above replacement, 17.2. Better than any forward from the back end. He was better than... it's incredible the type of value that he brought. His player card, he was a top 8% forward this year. top 8% or defenseman, sorry, top 8% defenseman. Look at his player card. It is insane. I know this is 1 year and he's closer to 30 than he is to 20. And that's why he probably is on the, I'm not sure, but Scotty, look at this.
Yeah.
I mean, look at his, first of all, look at the dichotomy between his expected goals above replacement and his goals above replacement at even strength offensively. He scored 9 goals this season. He was already so good offensively, but this says he should have scored even more goals. He should have provided even more offense. He hit a lot of posts this year in those 63 games played, but defensively, look how dynamite he was as well. I mean, this is a guy, a top 5% defensively. We talk so much about how good he is as an offensive defenseman, but he was even better defensively than he was offensively this season, according to goals above replacement. I mean, is Jake Walman, did he in 1 year at the Detroit Red Wings become an untouchable player on your roster?
I think that this is one of the situations in which you differentiate like long-term untouchable versus short-term. I don't think for the next calendar year, I think that Jake Walman is probably untouchable. Once you get past that, then you're talking about what he's got 3 years.
You got
left
a 3-year
on his deal,
extension,
right? So after you get past this upcoming season, if the Wings don't get over the hump and Walman is 28 with 2 years left, that's when you trade people, when they have a year and a half or 2 year left. So I think that it's kind of like this from now until mid-May next year. Yes, I completely agree with you. He's probably an untouchable asset. I think it makes zero sense to get rid of him as the roster is currently constructed. But that it's a reevaluate next summer based on where the team's at, probably more so than anything else.
He was 4th on the team in expected goals for percentage, and I want to read you who he was behind. Taro Hirose in 3 games played, so basically no sample size.
So dog.
I'm going to walk past that. Elmer Soderblom in 21 games played, only played the first 21 games of the season and then was sent down. Philip Zadina. I'm going to let that one sink in.
Past that.
I'm going to let that one sink in. The dog in 30 games played. Jake Walman in 63 games played. So he more than doubled every single other player who was above him on that list. He more than doubled their ice time. Actually, he nearly tripled the next closest player in Philip Zadina's ice time, yet he still had an expected goals for percentage of 52.31 on a team whose collective expected goals for percentage was in the bottom 5 of the league. I mean, this guy is one of the best defensemen in the league, or on this, well, without a doubt on this team, but one of the best defensemen in this league in a lot of these categories. And it's stunning. Like, I agree with you long term. I don't know if he's untouchable, but I think this year he is absolutely untouchable. You don't even if that last year was a flash in the pan and he has a down year this year, you're still holding out that he can recover that year 2 years from now. You know what I mean? Like, even if this is a down year, you're holding out a hope that last year was the real deal. He's untouchable this year.
I agree. For the next calendar year, he is absolutely untouchable for sure. And then you get the only thing that's really left, unless you have more NHL players, is that just like the prospects conversation.
Well, that was my last guy, was a prospect. I had one more guy, and it was Sebastian Cossa.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
I'm cool with labeling him untouchable. We still have a lot of steam left in him.
Totally cool with that, actually. Yeah, that goaltender is one of this team's biggest needs. You drafted him in the first round. You traded up to get him. We're not giving up on him anytime soon. He also had a phenomenal season in Toledo this year. Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely cool with that. I think that's it though. And the reason why, we can end the show on why that's the only prospect. It's because where the team stands right now. If this team sucked, then like you would be hoarding prospects. You know what I mean? You'd be like, no, we're leaving. We're not gonna get rid of anyone. We're in the business of collecting prospects to try to see who's going to turn out and who's not. Not that there's a lot of good young players in this organization still, a lot. But just because of where the Red Wings are right now, when you are trying to get over the hump and become a playoff team, if someone approaches you and says, we'll take some of your higher end prospects for a top end goal scorer type player, you're gonna do that with the names that are left that we haven't mentioned on this show. And I don't think there's anyone. There's some good dudes that are going to have really good NHL careers and be really good hockey players. Hopefully, most of them for the Detroit Red Wings. But I think that just, again, purely because of where the Red Wings are right now and the trajectory they're headed, that's how teams get better. That's like one of the prime examples teams have gotten better for the last 50 years of sports is you get a lot of prospects, you start getting over the hump, then you trade prospects to get current talent.
So I guess my next question then, or not my next question, but we promised to give the listeners our list of untouchable players. And again, we're listing all of these guys as untouchable for the upcoming season at the very least. Yeah. So our ranking, the point is moot on the ranking. They're all untouchable, but we're just kind of trying to give an arbitrary ranking to how untouchable they are.
Yeah.
So Scotty, go ahead and give me your list first.
I think Seider 1. Do you have Seider at 1?
Oh, easily.
Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Larkin 2.
Yeah.
And then that's where it starts getting difficult. I think I would go with Kasper 3. Edvinsson 4.
Okay.
Wow. Raymond 5, Walman 6. Oh, I forgot Cossa. Cossa can be right ahead of Raymond.
So again, this list, they're all untouchable. So it's arbitrary. I guess you could call it more of a depth ranking, really.
Yeah.
Seider 1, obviously. Larkin 2. I was surprised and also very happy that you also said Kasper 3 because, again, positional value, center,
that's
so
my biggest
important.
thing too.
Edvinsson 4.
Same.
I had Raymond at 5. And the only reason Raymond's at 5 is, again, positional value. He plays a winger. And that's just the least valued position out of all the positions of the players that we just listed. Again, I'm still untouchable. Then after that, Cossa 6, because this team desperately needs a goalie in the near future, but, he's still a few years away. And then Walman 7. And the only reason Walman is the bottom tier on that list is due to his age.
Yeah, for sure.
If this team's window is still a couple of years long in the tooth, then you could see him becoming touchable faster.
Yeah. So we have the same. I just switched Cossa and Raymond. Besides that, we had the same list.
Yes. Yeah. Good episode, man. That was fun.
Yeah.
It's interesting to talk about. Our untouchable list has grown since last year, and that is a good thing.
That's the sign of a good organization. Yes, sir.
So obviously, if somebody offers you everything's got a price, right? In the end, untouchable only takes you so far. But it was a fun episode.
If assuming we pick at 9, I'm sure there'll be a conversation of how untouchable whoever we take at 9 immediately becomes.
Yes. Anyway, Scotty, how am I ending this episode? How we going out here?
We ball.
We ball, of course.
Brian, any final thoughts?
Go Tigers.
The boys are hot.
Boys are hot. Winning record in May. Have not lost
7-2 in May. Not just a winning record. 7-2.
All I know is that those AL East games never happened. Never happened.
Well, if that was true, we'd be the Rays. So
yes. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. Your team every day.
Every day.